What's going on, guys? Andrew Piluk Hockey here, back again with another video. Today I'm going to be looking at an article that Sportsnet put out. Rory Boylan from Sportsnet made an article talking about if every NHL team had one trade candidate, who would it be? Like, who are the guys that, he can see, or, Sportsnet collectively can see getting traded this offseason. So I wanted to go through this, probably go quickly through some of the names, but just talk about some of the names and give my personal opinion on if I believe that those players could get traded. I do a lot of trade videos. I do a lot of signing videos here. So if you aren't subscribed, make sure to do that. If you enjoy what you see, lots more videos are coming on all NHL teams. I know there's a lot of Leaf stuff here, but I do talk about all NHL teams, and more videos are coming. So make sure to subscribe and like the video if you do like it. But let's get into it. And of course, it's going to be in alphabetical order. So we're starting off with the Anaheim Ducks. And Rory Boylan has Adam Henrique posted there. Now, the Ducks are, without even reading, there's a description here, so go check out the article if you want to see his thoughts. But Adam Henrique is a guy that I think the Ducks could move on from because they are in a rebuilding stage right now. He's getting paid over $6 million per season. He's been pretty good for them. I think you can hover over his name here on the website. Basically, he had 26 goals, 17 assists in 71 games played. So not too bad. It says it here too. We all know he's been consistent in the NHL, but the Ducks are in a spot now where they might want to move him out for assets for futures, and it could make sense for them to do that. I know the Ducks probably have a few candidates that they can move out there. They just want to be more competitive. They have a pretty good goaltender there, and their team has some young players. They've got a pretty good defenseman in Josh Manson, so they've got pieces there, but they just don't have a good team collectively. They have trouble finding ways to get everybody to go at the exact same time. So the Ducks definitely need to make a move, and Adam Henrique seems to be a guy that could get you back something to make this team better. The Arizona Coyotes, Derek Stepan. Stepan, however you want to personally pronounce it, I've heard it a million different ways at this point. Taylor Hall is a big question mark for them, so obviously that's something that they're going to have to look at. But if they are going to hold on to him, they've got the Keller contract, they've got Phil Kessel's contract. This team has a few players that maybe aren't producing to the level that their contracts are talking to. So this could be a guy that gets traded. Like I said, Clayton Keller's new contract comes up to $7.15 million. So that's a big raise. And then, like I said, there's other players around there that are getting paid. And if they are able to keep Taylor Hall, then they're definitely going to have to. They're definitely going to have to move out somebody, and Stepan could be the option there. I've heard some people say that maybe Phil Kessel's still a possibility, and if there is a compliance buyout, I'm almost wondering if he's an option. But we'll have to see. That definitely makes sense. I don't have too much else to say about them because they've got a couple question marks to go, and Taylor Hall is probably the biggest one. The Boston Bruins, Nick Ritchie. Now, I know Nick Ritchie is the style of player where a lot of people aren't really aware of him. Like, I know, like, hockey fans, if you're a really hardcore hockey fan, you know who he is. But like, if you watch the style that he plays, I feel like he's just like tailor made to be a Bruin. And I just don't know why they would want to move on from him. And again, this article is just stating like if they were picking one player from every team, so it's not necessarily like, oh, this guy's 100% a trade candidate, but basically, I just think that he's a good fit for there. But if Boston does want to move out some guys to bring in more talent, or if they feel like they're not spending money where they need to be, and they want to move on from Ritchie to pay somebody else, like, I mean, they're going to pay Torrey Krug, and I don't think Nick Ritchie's going to get in the way. And it also says here, like, the Bruins are not in a bad cap situation, so like it's not like they're desperate to move him out, but they might want to package him together with somebody. Maybe they just figure they're moving on from him. They're not, liking the way that he's playing for them. So there's a bunch of things up in the air there. I just don't know if it makes a ton of sense for them to move on from Nick Ritchie, and that might have just been a pick that they went with for Boston because they couldn't find anybody else because they're so good. The Buffalo Sabres, Rasmus Ristolainen. This one I shouldn't have to talk about too much, but he's been in trade rumors for so long. Buffalo is going to have to move on from him sooner or later. I think that he's a talented player, but at the same time, they've been trying to move on from him. I like, even Sabres fans are like, hey, like, who needs a defenseman? Like, I don't know. I think that he's pretty good, but at the same time, you definitely can get a good return for him. So maybe that's just the reasoning behind it. They want to just maximize his value and try to get something back that can help them on the scoring front, maybe. I still feel like they need help on that blue line, anyways, like most teams. I mean, there's a lot of teams in the league that need help on that blue line, so maybe he goes to another team and fits in better. I guess it's just not going to be in Buffalo. I don't know. We'll have to see because it's been back and forth whether or not he's going to get traded. This one is kind of nuts to me, but we've heard the name out there, Johnny Gaudreau. I want to make a video on this specifically, but there's been some talk that basically Gaudreau is part of a weird, like, I don't want to say vibe, but like there's a weird like group of people that think that he should be traded. And I think that's more on the fan side. Like there's some fans that think he should be traded so that way they can bring in more assets. Like maybe they flip him for a piece for their blue line and then like a good secondary scoring option. But Johnny Gaudreau is a really good hockey player. He's not getting paid a ton of money. His contract's less than $7 million for the next couple of years, I believe. So I just don't know why they would want to do that. I think he's a really talented hockey player. I think that this offseason they're going to have some moving around to do. I think that they're going to try to improve that blue line a little bit. They're just going to move out somebody and bring in somebody that they feel is better. Like I believe Brody and Hamonic are both free agents. You only are probably going to hold on to one of those guys, and then maybe they can spend additional money to bring in a different guy. There's a ton of names that are going to be out there that they could improve that blue line and maybe pick up secondary scoring in free agency as well. I just don't think that you should give up a guy like Johnny Gaudreau. It just doesn't make a ton of sense to me. The Carolina Hurricanes, Jake Gardiner. I don't know how much to say about this guy. I'm a huge fan of him. When he played in Toronto, I know a lot of people aren't the biggest fan of him, but I think he's really talented. His cap is at $4.5 million, or $4.05, sorry, million dollars for the next few years. He is a very offensively minded defenseman. I thought he was going to fit in quite well with the Hurricanes, but their blue line is so deep that he doesn't get that same time that he was getting in Toronto when it came to the offensive zone. So he's probably just not a good fit for Carolina. He'll probably fit in much better with another team where he'll get more of an offensive role in terms of minutes. So I think that he'll recover. Of course, he just came off of back surgery just over a year ago, I think. So maybe that's still hurting him a little bit, but I wish him all the best. Hopefully, if he does get traded, a team gets to use him in a offensive role in the top four. Chicago Blackhawks, Brendan Saad. He's a good player, but I think that his value on the trade market is a little bit overrated. I don't think that he's worth a hell of a lot. I think he's worth a bit to be able to recoup, but he's got 1 year left on that deal, $6 million cap hit. Maybe the Hawks try to move that guy, but I don't know. I think Saad's a good player, but I think that his value might be overrated just a tad. I'm not too sure what teams would be interested. I'm sure there are teams that would be, but he's getting paid $6 million. Last season, he had 21 goals, 12 assists in 58 games played. He still can score. I don't know what his market's like because he's been on the market a couple times and apparently not a ton of teams were interested. So that's just what I've been reading. Again, I think that he's talented and maybe he does get moved if the Blackhawks do see a chance to get a couple picks and they do have some contracts that they probably want to sign as well. Colorado, I mean, self-explanatory. Their team is really good. They have a ton of cap space. That first round pick shouldn't be too hard to move on from. Teams will be looking for more first rounders. There's always a good opportunity out there to get a good draft pick, and teams sometimes will overpay to get those first round picks. So maybe there's help that the Avalanche can get from tying a first round pick to another asset or a prospect. The Avalanche are in a good spot. They've got money. They've got really good talent. And they've got some pretty decent contracts signed there. So that first will get traded, I'm sure. I'm going to try to go a little bit faster here. We've got not a ton of battery left, I don't think. But also, I think I've been talking a little bit too much specifically on certain teams. But Josh Anderson, rough and tough type of guy, 6'3", 222 pounds. He was definitely in the trade rumors. The Blue Jackets shocked a lot of people. They're a little bit better than people expected, including myself. He was in the trade rumor mill. He didn't get moved at the deadline, but I mean, he must be a trade candidate if he was being dangled around by Columbus, and I think that he would help a team in their bottom six, I'm sure. But he's making less than $2 million right now. He's going to have a weird arbitration process, it says here, but I mean, that's kind of self-explanatory. Arbitration is always kind of weird with how much you're going to get, but he's going to be interesting to see. Dallas, first round pick. And it says here it's the same thing, but like their cap situation isn't as good as Colorado. They've got some young guys that can probably come in and do a good job for them, so they might be able to attach that first round pick with a player on their roster that they feel is taking up minutes from one of their younger players, and they can acquire more talent. You know, they've got a pretty good team. They've got a great goaltender. They've got some scoring. Maybe it's time that they go after another scoring option threat and you know, use that first round pick to their advantage. Detroit, Anthony Mantha. This one kind of seems like you're just picking and choosing, like, oh, maybe Mantha, but you know, he's still in his prime, it says here. I mean, I think again that's kind of self-explanatory. Really good player. The Red Wings are rebuilding, and they're going to want to keep all their young talent. I think Mantha is probably going to stick around and do a really good job for them in terms of trying to come up and build with them. It's talking here about, you know, the contract process could be a little complicated, but I think that they'll end up getting it done and keep him a part of their rebuilding process. Now, the next player is Jesse Puljujarvi, and of course from the Edmonton Oilers. This guy, we've talked about him so much. He's going to get traded. I don't know where it's going to be to, but it seems like he does not want to play for the Edmonton Oilers. He went and played in the Finnish league. He finished fourth in scoring. He's 22. He's going to get an opportunity to play somewhere else, and it's probably going to be on a rebuilding team that wants to try him out to see if, you know, he's actually going to turn out to what he was supposed to be. And he was selected fourth in his draft year. He was supposed to be in the top three, but Pierre-Luc Dubois went ahead of him. I also predicted that. But he's a good player. He'll get traded. Florida, Michael Matheson. This is one of the most interesting teams going into this offseason. They apparently are supposed to shed $10 million of salary. They've got Bobrovsky's big contract. Dadonov to deal with, Hoffman. Owen Tippett's going to want to get some minutes there. So Matheson could be a casualty when it comes to getting dealt. They have a really good team here. Florida's a really good team, but they've got a lot of money tied into players that they probably want to move on from, and then they've also got some UFAs that they're trying to hold on to. So Florida's a team I want to make a full video on, but Matheson does make sense, but I'd be interested to see what they do with Sergei Bobrovsky if they are trying to shed salary. Los Angeles Kings, Jeff Carter, another guy who was rumored to be traded at the deadline. The Kings are falling down the standings. They're not a very good team. You probably can get a good amount for Jeff Carter, like in 60 games played last year, 17 goals, 10 assists, but he's a leader. He's a big guy. He's really physical. And, you know, you never know. When he steps into another team, he could, you know, find that scoring touch even more. Who knows? I think it'd be interesting to see if he got dealt this offseason, and I'd honestly like to see it. The Minnesota Wild, says Matt Dumba here. He's been in the trade rumors again for the past 2 or 3 years. Really, you know, physical, offensively styled defenseman. He is. I think he's slightly injury prone. I know he's missed some games over the past 2 to 3 years. It's going to be him or Brodin from Minnesota. That's another situation I kind of want to make a full video on, because Bill Guerin, the new sheriff in town. We all know who Bill Guerin is, though. But we'll have to see. He's going to want to make some moves, make this team better. And maybe he can by trading one of those guys to get some assets back, because he will get a pretty penny for either one of those guys. Montreal Canadiens. This one kind of surprises me, but kind of doesn't. Max Domi. Now, Montreal's a team that is starting to really build their cupboard. They've got a lot of really good young players that are stepping in. We've seen Kakanyemi. He's been up and down. Hopefully he can fill that role of being a really solid NHL player. Poling is a guy that they see at center in the future as well. You also have a guy who played for the Guelph Storm, Suzuki. I mean, I got to watch him play, one of the most exciting players I've ever seen play live. That guy is a firecracker. So maybe they trade Domi to acquire help. because they feel that these young guys can take over the spot that he's already got, and maybe they just shed those minutes between the young guys and they're able to fill a spot on maybe the blue line, which they've been looking for a while now. Or again, more secondary scoring. They feel like maybe Domi can get them that. Although Domi does bring that physical edge and that mental way of being a pest and getting into people's business. So maybe Domi is the one that sticks around, but he's a big trade option for Montreal. The New Jersey Devils, Pavel Zacha, they might just be giving up on him. He hasn't really filled into what they thought he could be. Again, it's tough to give up on a guy like this, especially for a team that's rebuilding, but maybe he's just not in their cards. That's a team that they've got a lot of question marks because they were supposed to be much better and they were not. So we'll have to be on the lookout for them. The Islanders, Johnny Boychuk, kind of self-explanatory, 36 years old, $6 million cap hit. Definitely not good when they are definitely a cap team right now. Matthew Barzal, they need big money for him. The Islanders have a lot of contracts that are much better than his. He's just the guy that's the odd man out in my eyes. Henrik Lundqvist for the New York Rangers, the king. I don't think any Rangers fans would want to see him traded, but Shesterkin and, of course, Georgiev, two of goaltenders of the future, look really good, although they could trade Georgiev, but it wouldn't make a ton of sense if you have an aging goaltender that maybe you trade him somewhere else, he goes on a cup run. I don't know if he'd want to leave. It seems like he wants to be on that team, on the Rangers for good. I would be sad to see the King leave the Rangers because everybody loves him. My buddy James loves I haven't talked to James in a while, but I'm sure he would be pretty upset about Lundqvist getting traded. So he's the option for the Rangers. The Senators, this one again is kind of like pulling out of nowhere because they don't really need to make this trade. Anthony Duclair, real good hockey player. Unless you want to sell high, he had a really good year this year. 66 games played, he had 23 goals and 17 assists. He really did prove that he's an NHLer. He's a full-time NHLer. So I wouldn't move on from him because I think the Senators need more of the physical style plus scoring aspect, and they're trying to win in the next few years. Like not win the cup, but like win. They're trying to win. They're trying to be a better team because man, those Senators fans, they've been dealing with a lot. Philadelphia Flyers, Shane Gothisbehere, 17 goals as a rookie. And then he hasn't really lived up to that since. He's been a guy where he's been top four and then not been a top four. He's basically a third. Rory hits the nail on the head here. Basically a third pair blue liner this year, making $4.5 million. Maybe he goes on to another team and he fits better. His value isn't exactly that high right now, so I'm not sure if the Flyers would be a little bit scared to make that move. The Pittsburgh Penguins, Tristan Jarry or Matt Murray, one of those guys. To me, it probably would be Matt Murray. Their goaltending situation is kind of similar to the Rangers. They've got a bunch of guys, but not enough spots. Matt Murray, obviously winning 2 cups technically as a rookie because of the way that, when Fleury got hurt and this, that, and the other. It's a weird situation there, but you'd obviously like to keep goalies so that way you have a lot of goaltenders in the system, but you also can't deny the process of a young goaltender and deny them of minutes when they probably can do quite well for you. And I'm sure that you probably do get a lot. I know some people are suggesting that Pittsburgh or teams like the Rangers could trade one of these goaltenders and acquire top 6 talent. I don't think it's that high. I think you could probably get a prospect and a pick. Nothing too crazy, but who knows? If teams feel like these goaltenders have starting potential full time, who knows what you give up. The Sharks, Martin Jones, again, I've talked about it before, actually in yesterday's video or depending on when I post this. Martin Jones, he's just streaky. When he's hot, he's hot. When he's not, he's terrible. I mean, that's just the way to look at it. The Sharks are supposed to be a better team. They need better goaltending. Martin Jones might be on the way out, but then you need to find a goaltender to replace him. I want to make a full video on the Sharks, but I think that there is options that they can fill. Tyler Bozak for the St. Louis Blues. He's just got a big contract. He's like a third-line centerman. They're going to need money to pay Pietrangelo if they do want to hold on to him. Maybe Alex Steen, Jaden Schwartz. They have a lot of options, but Bozak, $5 million for a bottom 6 role. Rory Bolin, again, hits it on the head. I love Bozak, but that's a lot of money. Tampa Bay, Alex Killorn. Man, Tampa's just got so much talent. I don't even know how you pick anybody from that team, but regardless, the Tampa Bay Lightning have a ton of they have a ton of players that they can move on from and still be an amazing team. They need deals for Cirelli and Sergachev. And then, of course, you've got other players like Palat, Gord, Janssen, but they've got full trade protection. So maybe Killorn is that guy, but Tampa's always creative. They always find ways to get better and somehow add talent. So I don't even know what to say at this point. Tampa's just a team that somehow finds a way to get out of these situations. The Maple Leafs, my team. Kerfoot, Alexander Kerfoot. I wouldn't put him at number one. I think Andreas Janssen is a more obvious trade candidate based on the fact that he's a winger. The Leafs have surplus of that. They don't have a lot of centermen. Now, Kerfoot was injured at times last year, and I also think that Leaf fans kind of gave up on him before actually looking at what he did. 9 goals, 19 assists in 65 games played, and he also played with a broken jaw. There could be a chance that Kerfoot and Janssen both get traded if you want to try to improve that blue line. Maybe both of them go to get that cap space. But with that Lettinen deal, the Leafs look like maybe they're going to try to roll with all the young guys they have and then bringing in Lettinen. I don't know. I don't know what Kerfoot even gets you. Probably a second or third round pick. Maybe just a third and a lottery ticket, as in like a prospect that just isn't working out for other teams. But we'll have to see. The Vancouver Canucks, Olli Juolevi, they've got a lot of young stars. Juolevi has never really cracked this lineup. There's been rumors about him in terms of the video game stuff. I don't know how true that was. But I think that there's other obvious trade candidates on this team, but nobody really wants them. They've got aging players that aren't very good, and such as Beagle. But Vancouver's got a good team. They're going to be good going forward. Maybe they tie Juolevi up with somebody else to clear out that cap space. That's just an idea, but they've got so many good players now on that team that in a couple of years, starting now, they're going to be building, and you're not going to really miss a Juolevi. And I'm not being mean, but that's just the truth. Marc-Andre Fleury, this is weird. They just signed him to a big contract. I believe he's getting paid like $7 million a season, but they picked up Leonard at the deadline, so they basically had 2 starting goaltenders. The only way that I see this happening is if they feel like they can hold on to Leonard long term, give him that contract, trade Fleury off somewhere else. But Fleury is an aging goaltender. While he's still good, his numbers are slightly declining. Again, he's so damn good. Like, Fleury's an amazing goaltender, but it's just how hard will he fall off? You know what I mean? And then that money is just way too much for Vegas or another team to hold on to. So I don't know. Fleury's going to be 36 in November, guys. He's getting up there. I still think he's a good goaltender. Whether or not Vegas wants to hold on to him is up to them. They've got some guys that they could probably move on from, but I would suspect that they want to move on from him. The Capitals, Nick Jensen. Jensen's a guy I believe that they had just acquired that last year. But again, Washington's such a good team. I don't think that they would really miss a guy like Nick Jensen. Again, no offense to Nick Jensen. I'd love to have him on my team. He's a defenseman, of course, so I believe he's a right shot as well. Plays more of a defensive style game. He would make a lot of sense for a lot of teams, so I'm sure a lot of teams would welcome him with open arms. But the option for the Capitals, that kind of makes sense. Winnipeg Jets, Jack Roslovic. They were a team that surprisingly their blue line kind of held up last year, so maybe they try to get rid of a winger to acquire another blue line piece. Obviously, Bufflin's gone now, and they want to try to not tie up too much money into some players that they have currently. They have a really good forward group, but they want to try to bring in more secondary scoring, more pieces for their blue line. And that's going to be a Jack Roslovic and probably other depth players. They're going to try to move out of there to try to bring in a better named talent. So that's one player from all 31 teams. Again, Rory Bolin from Sportsnet had the idea. I just wanted to look at the names that he brought up and kind of give my opinion on it. I might make a separate video maybe talking about some players that I think could get traded from these teams that Rory did not mention, because there's some teams that I would have brought up another player, and I said a couple of them in this video, but I want to make a more informed list and talk about my reasoning why. So if you are new to this channel, make sure to subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. Join the squad. Yeah, thanks guys, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video or stream. Peace.